What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is our NFC training camp episode. Be sure to check out our AFC pod, which is up now. We go really in depth. When I say we, I'm talking about the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey. Stuck, what's going on?
Doing well, man. Ready to keep the rambling session going in the NFC. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man. It seems like there's not a lot of certainty heading into this year. And the NFC is kind of always like that. It goes through these ebbs and flows where it seems like it's going to be a tougher year for Philly. So you might have a team step up, and let's start in the NFC South because I think the Bucs are really interesting. If we are high on Liam Cohen and what he's going to bring to the Jacksonville Jaguars, then we have to consider, what's going to happen with this Bucs offense that just played out of its mind last year. And when I say out of its mind, I mean going from 20.5 points per game in 2023 to 29.5 last year. I'm talking about no real drop off when you lose Godwin and then Mike Evans. I'm talking about red zone dominance, third down. I mean, Baker Mayfield setting career highs in passing touchdowns, rushing. I mean, it's just everything went so well for Tampa Bay last year. And then they just faceplant in the most important drives of the year, the playoffs. So, like, have they peaked, or are they still getting better? Because this defense, I mean, it could fall. It could go really bad, but it could also be good if these secondary guys continue to come along and the old guys don't fall off a cliff. So where are you with Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the defense. I'll be curious to see if some of their young corners can make an impact in Parrish or Morrison. See if they can get in the mix. But I expect we expect Jacksonville's offense to be a lot better with Cohen. So I naturally be a hypocrite. I didn't think the Bucs would take a step back. When will Godwin be healthy? Can Igbuka? What can he give you? And then you have the left tackle situation now with Tristan Wirfs, arguably one of the best, if not the best, left tackle in the NFL. Now, beginning of the year, it's going to be Heck there. That could be really detrimental. So, yeah, a lot of questions with this roster starting with the loss of Cohen, but now you have questions at left tackle, receiver, and I have a lot of questions about this defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs take a step back this year.
Yeah, and then Cohen's schemes were a big reason that, for example, McMillan got a ton of his touchdowns. Cohen got buy-in from that line and turned them. They were a bad offensive line before he got there.
Yep.
So yeah, there are some warning signs here. But I guess a related question: can any of these other teams take advantage? Because in this division, you would be set up really well. But I mean, Jason White, he's done a decent job keeping this Bucs team afloat, from Tom Brady, and like they still kind of chugged along and maintained their dominance in this division. So let's go to Atlanta and Michael Penix. I think can he continue to build on what I think was an advantageous situation for him that kind of played out where he got some starts down the stretch last year in high leverage situations. He he has the easy schedule to start the year: Carolina, Minnesota. You can have a pretty good start to the year. You have continuity now. You lose Dalman, but you bring him back the same group for the most part. So, does Michael Penix take advantage of this, hit the ground running, and kind of put some pressure from the jump on this Bucs team, or is it just more of the same with Atlanta, where their defense really doesn't give them enough for it to matter what their offense is doing?
Yeah, I mean the secondary isn't great. It's not going to be elite. So how can you? I'd be curious to see if Xavier Watts can get on the field. Maybe as a day one starter at safety. I don't know. We'll see. He's someone that could raise the ceiling a bit at that position. But the secondary is not going to be elite. How can you help a secondary that's not elite? The pass rush, which everyone knows the Falcons have been lacking forever, it seems like. So one of the biggest things that I'm watching is just can their young guys, or you got
Yes.
Rook, but Walker and Pierce,
Yes.
what can they give you? I think that's the key to the defense. It could be key to the season. And it's really sad. Like everyone said this was so dumb what they were doing with getting Penix and then Cousins, like drafting Penix and then Cousins, because you should have just done one or the other. And think about if they just drafted Penix, they didn't get Cousins. They don't have Cousins sitting there with all that money. They could have went out and addressed some of these other holes, had Penix on that rookie deal. This team could be sitting in a much prettier position than they are right now. So yeah, I think the key to this defense, as it's always been, is can they get a pass rush? They tried to address in the draft. We'll see. Walker and Pierce, key to that defense, in my opinion. What can they give you? And then if you're really confident in them, maybe you trade or let Floyd go with the amount of money he's making. I don't know. But those are the two key guys. And then obviously you want Penix to continue to develop with, as you said, is an offense that is essentially the same outside of center. And it was a center that was starting at the end of last year due to injury. So not as many questions on that end. If Penix can continue to progress, comes down to the defense and where can they get that consistent pass rush, and it might have to come from their young rookies.
Yeah, I mean, this team has just had a lot of struggles, and because they spent draft capital on offense. To your point, defense has to kind of be that squad where you get a good coach and a coordinator, and you get a bunch of different free agents, and you cobble together a good defense. But they haven't been able to do it, and so now they went the other direction and spent some picks there. But the jury's still out. And if those guys don't hit, I mean, yeah, Floyd is 33, Onyemata is 32, Fox is 31, Ellis even is 30 all of a sudden. And then it's like Ulbrich is there, Jerry Gray is there, Ken Zampese. Like it's just I don't see. It's probably going to be more of the same. But at least they put themselves in position with some risk in the first round. So I don't hate it, but probably
just imagine without Cousins. They could have brought in like two more primo free agent acquisitions, and what that could have done to this roster.
And one more team would have a quarterback. Like maybe Pittsburgh doesn't have to take the ghost of Aaron Rodgers, but we shall never know. Carolina. Let's start defensively for them too, because Bryce Young, it's been up and down. I thought he ended the year well, but it's not going to matter if the defense is disastrous. But we like Edro Evero, right? And then your two best players.
He's like Patrick Graham. Like I like what he does schematically, but there's not much. There's only so much you can do with the cards that you're dealt.
Yeah.
If you get, he's had. They both have had like 2-3 offsuit dealt to them, and it's just not like there's just not a lot of talent here. And it's similar to the Falcons, where can they get a consistent pass rush, right? Like this secondary is not going to be elite by any stretch of the imagination. You just look at outside of Horn, you got to hope that Horn like stays healthy and hits his ceiling. And if that doesn't happen, this defensive backfield looks bad quick. Now, they dealt with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball last year, so getting healthier should help a little bit. But can they get a pass rush? And that could end up just like the Falcons. Maybe you're going to need to rely on some of your rookies. I don't know how. Can Scorton, can Princely, can they help in that department? They might need to. Because this defense is just void of talent overall. It's one of the least talented defenses in the entire league. I'm high on Bryce Young, continuing what I saw from him at the end of last year. And it will help if McMillan comes in as a rookie and is a hit right off the bat. That's something to watch with him in camp and leading up into the season, how he's performing, the chemistry with him and Young. But the offensive line should be pretty good. And if McMillan hits, you got some pretty good weapons. And I think Bryce Young, whatever, if you think it was fluky, then you might not be high on this offense. But I think this offense has some juice. But can they get any stops? it's a really bad roster on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I will say this about my question is, it comes down to the individual player evaluations. Like, did they pick the right guys? Did they acquire the right guys? Did they put the right roster together? Because I think they're doing it. They have upside in the sense that they're in a weak division. The other teams are vulnerable, and you still have a quarterback on a rookie deal. But it comes down to, and like the thing I like is that, yeah, the defense was horrible, but you've added so many young guys and rookies that the best thing you could say is that it's going to be almost completely new, and there could be some guys that hit, and then this defense could look a lot different because you do have two anchors. Derek Brown should be back. He was elite in 23, and then he plays one game last year. And J.C. Horn, I mean, he had his worst season last year, but he's been very good when he's on the field, but he's missed almost half his career games. If those guys stay healthy, then it's like, okay, maybe you play some young guys around them and let them work into roles, but you draft a defense in 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So you could have 2, 3, 4 impact players. You're going to have a new safety duo to start with, almost certainly with probably Ransom, and then you got Merrick. So, I mean, there's some upside for it to get back to respectability, right? But it really comes down to, are they hitting on these players? And I'm not supremely confident. I feel like everyone Carolina tends to have is like risky, but not in risky like, oh yeah, they're just volatile and they could either win you a Super Bowl or go bust. It's just like they're unnecessarily risky. Like Bryce Young he's still, shaky. Adam Thielen is like, when is he going to fall off the cliff? McMillan, is he going to be Drake London, or is he going to be like somebody that can't separate? And it's a problem, and it wasn't worth it because you got an undrafted guy anyway. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's this division is just so, you see why the Bucks keep winning it but I do like Carolina's chances of, I think they're in a good spot. But like New Orleans, I mean, what do we think of New Orleans? Because I feel like New Orleans could be our the thorn in our side this year, like kind of like the Titans. I feel like New Orleans, it's like behind door one, they're just so awful that we have to bet on them because the market is just giving us ridiculous numbers. Number two is like they're not quite as awful, but we still have to bet on them because no one's buying it. And then, or they actually are decent, and then we have to fade them. But then it's like we're betting on Carolina and the Jets and Tennessee against them, and they blow them out. Like I feel like I'm going to lose money on New Orleans one way or another. So just like, how is it going to be like Titans bad with Shuck, or is it going to be surprisingly decent because it can't get much worse than Dennis Allen and what was going on these last few years anyway?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to watch when you're going to have, I think this is the most important quarterback battle just for a team when you're like betting on them. They're going to be bad. Like, I mean, the most likely scenario is that this team's going to be really bad. But if Shuck doesn't win the job, then they could be really, really, really bad. And even if Shuck wins the job, they still could be really, really bad. But you need Shuck to be like a guy, and because
he's a guy, all right.
What's that?
He's a guy, all right.
Yeah, I mean, but they we already know Hayner and Rattler aren't the answers. Yeah. Like I even saw someone. I was reading someone like Hunter Deckers might get a look. Like Hunter Decker, I was like, I didn't even know that he was on the Saints. And so, like, yeah, I mean, he was a guy. He like was at Iowa State a couple years ago. Then he went to like I think a community college. I don't even know. So yeah, I mean, the offensive line is where like Banks. You got to make sure he hits at left tackle. Then Penning, is he better at left guard? And then maybe you got something along the offensive line, which would be helpful if Shuck wins the job for a rookie quarterback. This team just needs to hit the reset button so bad. Like with their cap issues have just hamstrung them so much. I don't know, there's some aging, decent players on the defense, but it's aging is a problem. Just the quarterback play could be so bad that it doesn't matter. So Shuck's got to win this job, and he's got to be decent for this team to be competent. So that's mainly all I'm watching here. Coaching should be better. But Shuck has to win this job, and he has to be decent from the get-go. And then the offensive line, watching how that comes together, will be important. But yeah, it's all about Shuck in that quarterback battle for me.
Is this? But so, what do you think the message is internal? Like, because like, what do you think they're trying to do? Like, are they trying to tank, or is Kellen Moore kind of is like? Do they want him to just win? Because it's a very odd collection of one of the oddest rosters I think I've seen in a while, where it's somehow not that talented, but also not that terrible for as much as people are down on them. And then you got a new coach, but he's an offensive coach. So you always have, I mean, you got a coach coming off coordinating in the Super Bowl. And now it's like, then you got to get Brandon Cooks. Like, of all, like, I don't understand why that was a necessary move. I mean, it's just like a lot of the pieces don't fit. And then you go out and draft a pro-ready guy who's like, he's just old. And so everyone's like, yeah, if you need this guy to start, he's your guy. Like what do they think they're just gonna like hide the quarterback all year and do what Kellen Moore did last year and go to the Super Bowl or something? Like what do you think they think?
I don't know. I don't think they really know what they think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. But I think they could be feisty. Because it's not like they're not truly tanking. So it's
no one likes outright tanks. So it's going to come down to the quarterback. It's going to come down to Shuck. Also, you got a defensive schematic change, like a pretty big change, just philosophically and schematically. Curious to see how that plays out and see if they're using other players in different ways. But let's move on to the NFC East. Let's start with the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. You know, when the thing that I'm worried about with the Eagles is probably on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like, I mean, there's things that you could like this Saquon is probably not going to replicate what he did last year. The offensive coordinator situation, is it like a Johnson situation a couple years ago after losing more? It's a little worrisome too. There's some questions on the offense, but it's the defense, right? They lost a lot of contributors from that defense. And it was a defense that was really bad a couple years ago, and it was saved by the draft. Again, good teams able to draft. They drafted, their biggest weakness was in the secondary, and they hit on a couple of guys that were integral parts of that Super Bowl win. You know, then you got a guy like Zach Brown who just became an all-pro at linebacker. So my questions here are mainly on the defense. I mean, this is a team, their schedule does get a lot harder, and they won the Super Bowl. They were 8-2 in one possession games. They were number 2 in health. Like, are they going to stay as healthy this year? There's a lot of things that are pointing down for this team, but they have kind of a cheat code with the tush push and how aggressive they are on fourth downs. But as the cap hit with Hurts, you got to pay him, you got to pay receivers. It comes down to the draft over time, and their young talent. How can they contribute? My biggest question for this team, you got some linebacker injuries you got to worry about, like Dean and Campbell. When are they going to be ready to go? That's something to watch. But for me, it's the secondary shakeout. And this is one of the most interesting teams for me, because Fangio, do you even get a year 2 bump from Fangio? I don't know how much better you can get. The improvement from 2 years ago to last year was remarkable. But Fangio's pressers always must listen to, must watch. He will tell you a lot. And he's very open and transparent in that department. So what I want to watch and listen to is, how does the secondary come together? Like the safeties, I have a lot of questions about. Where do they put DeJean? Like, are they going to play him some at safety? Is he going to be outside and inside? Who's going to be that outside corner number 2? How does the secondary shake out? And it's huge. You have a guy like DeJean. That's like the new age NFL. You want these guys that are hybrids that can play safety, nickel, corner. Gives you ultimate flexibility, versatility on defense. Allows you to disguise. Allows you to be less predictable. And they have that with a guy like DeJean. So how are they going to use him? How's the safety room, cornerback room going to come together. So for me, it's the defense with the Eagles and how they replace some of what they lost and how they use some of the new pieces. How about you? What are your thoughts on the Eagles?
I think you brought up something really interesting where we were talking about the AFC last pod about you probably want to hit on your quarterback in a couple years. And I think the Eagles, one of the reasons that they've been able to excel is they've played the timing game very well too, right? Because we always joke about it, but no one wins the NFC East 2 years in a row. And so Philly has been oscillating between second and first place. And that when they have that second place schedule the next year, then they beast again and get to the Super Bowl. And that's kind of been their MO. So if this is a year where I think rightfully they're a little more boom or bust, and will it work out with the coordinator? Who knows? Are there what's the plan if Saquon goes down? He had nearly 500 touches regular season and post. Jalen Hurts, there for all the as well as he played at times, and he won the Super Bowl. Remember the narrative mid-season? Like there was question marks like week in, week out. AJ Brown, this team kind of lives and dies by making the timing work for them. So they're kind of playing with house money this year. And if something's don't work out, hey, get that second, maybe even third place schedule. And we know how he can figure it out in the draft. So I think even if they take a step back this year, which they almost certainly will, I think, but it's not going to be the worst thing for them, because I think they're at a point where they do have an advantage in terms of the front office, and that can't be understated with a lot of teams. It's just not something that a lot of teams have. So I think this year is probably a Washington year. I think it's probably, or maybe even Dallas or something. But I think the Eagles, it's going to be like the 2 years ago where we're probably going to, or the market's probably going to overrate them.
Yeah, I think they're a little overrated. I mean, it's still one of the best rosters in the NFL. And what you want to pay attention to with these teams that are near the top, that have to pay their premium positions, is how they draft. Like you look at the Eagles, who do they bring in the offseason? Free agents. I mean, nobody of note. So it's about their drafts. You want to see each draft class. You want to have a couple guys that are able to contribute and that are developing, because things are going to be harder for the Eagles this year. Some of the talent they lost on defense, their offensive coordinator, they go from a bottom 3 schedule to a top 3 schedule. Basically in their schedule, like they replace the Jags with the Bills, the Packers with the Bucks. They get the Rams again. Giants and Cowboys should be more competent, and they replace the NFC South with the NFC North. So, and they were one of the healthiest teams in the league last year.
Yes, that's a big one, because as good as Howie's been, I will say this: the one area where I think he has curiously left them lacking depth is the skill positions offensively. So you are really relying on, Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, and to a lesser extent Goddard, because he's been in and out and they've still been able to weather the storm. But I mean, we've seen what happens when guys go down. It's like next thing you know, it's the Paris Campbells of the world, and it can spiral for the Eagles, because
or if you lose a Lane Johnson.
Yeah. It's like you go from getting yourself into these great game scripts and then going super run heavy and taking advantage of it. But now this year, tougher schedule, you don't have that same margin for error. And I mean, Saquon Barkley, the amount of work he got, and also you got to factor in that you had Barkley going crazy from long range. I think it was 11 touchdowns from outside the red zone last year, including the postseason. If those aren't replicated, you also, your other play is the tush push, and that's great, but you can't always rely on, like, if the offense takes a step back, like, it could all spiral to where you're also not getting in as many tush push situations, as many long touchdowns, and your depth is the weakest at those spots. So if Philly runs into some trouble, there is a low floor, but then again, that gives them massive upside next year. So Philly will be fine, but just something I'm kind of watching for.
All right, let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys. A lot to watch here. I mean, it's a circus as always. George Pickens joins the circus. It's a perfect fit down there.
Just like Waller in Miami, unbelievable. It's
Yeah, I also don't understand the hires. Like, so I don't think anyone understood the head coaching hire in Schottenheimer. But then they bring in Eberflus as the new defensive coordinator. I don't think his identity fits here with what the Cowboys are good at and what they do. And he really needs good linebackers. I don't really have that here.
You need a guy with personality too. You got to be able to, that's like stand up to, like you got a lot of strong personalities on that defense. Eberflus doesn't strike. Like I totally agree with you. That's a great.
No, and linebackers are like key to his scheme, and their linebackers are like Sanborn, Kenneth Murray, and Overshone. Who, when is he going to be available? There's some injury questions here, like that are worth monitoring. Like how healthy is Dak? What's he look like? But Overshone, Diggs, what's going on with him? Revel, their rookie that they drafted, who I actually really like, but he's coming off an injury. When is he going to be healthy? So there's a lot of injury questions that are worth monitoring. You need Tyler Booker to be good at guard, I think. But it's a circus. And then their offensive coordinator they hired, who they brought in, Clayton Adams, from Arizona, and like he was like the run game guy. That was his specialty, and like offensive line and run game. This is a team that's just going to drop back and throw it a million times.
Or will they?
I don't know. But if they're going to run it, who are they running it with? Because their running back room is definitely worth watching. Because you brought in Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. So then I would think, hey, can we get one of these rookies? Phil Mafia. I know it's Mafia. Phil Mafia or Blue. But then you had Schottenheimer come out and say, like, these guys are at a big disadvantage because they don't have the experience. So, like, it makes it sound like they're not going to get a shot. Then you had someone come out today, more circus things, and saying on some podcast I was reading that Blue is lazy and the coaches don't like what they've seen and he's not going to get a look. I don't know what's going on with the running back room. So you're going to even have a running game. Is Dak even as mobile as he once was? And their offense at best when he's moving. I don't know. I'm souring on the Cowboys the more and more with each passing day.
Yeah, I'm worried about them too. I think this would be in theory, it should be a great buy low spot for them because again, Philly gonna be running into a much tougher sledding, and Washington. It's gonna be hard for them to they had such a good year when the jury's out, but they did improve the roster. Now, the thing about the Cowboys that I think really is striking is their internal evaluations and even coaching, because Dan Quinn, he goes
poorly ran team. It's look who's running it.
Yeah, exactly. And Pickens doesn't give you a ton of confidence that they're gonna be able to keep him in check because they feel like they're desperate for another receiver. They were trading for Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo, really? Just because you see the first, this team doesn't really evaluate talent well, and the running backs. You mentioned it, but look at last year. They went into the season with Dowdle and Zeke Elliott. It took them damn near half the season to actually acknowledge that Zeke was washed in a zero, and then Dowdle plays well. And instead of re-signing him, and he still signed it, you could have got him for cheap. You let him walk, and you replace him with two of the worst veteran running backs in the league over these last few years. And also remember the Dalvin Cook thing last year. They give me no confidence that they have figured anything out. And to your point, then they go hire. They're trying to just cut corners at coach, and Mike McCarthy might look a lot better with Schottenheimer and Clayton Adams and lazy running backs and
Eberflus, which I don't think is a scheme fit.
The swag levels are decreasing. Dak seems Dak's also, the thing about Dak is that it's kind of sad is, remember how he's always had a floor, and from the time he came into the league as a rookie, so much promise, and he's kind of plateaued, but I just don't think he's learning much year to year, like year over year. Like there's not necessarily much growth. Like there's just a lot of volume in the passing game, but would you say Dak really made leaps and strides since his early on in his career, or nah? Like he just threw more, right? Like that. Yep. That's yeah. So I mean, it's the Cowboys should in theory be able to take advantage, but I would probably say Washington is set up the best just based on the moves that they've made. Jaden Daniels' kind of uncanny ability to keep them ahead of schedule. Maybe he gets better this year, maybe he gets worse, but I think it looks pretty optimistic just because he throughout the year he showed an ability to avoid sacks more and more, and that's always a killer for some of these quarterbacks that like to scramble and whatnot, and that just allowed them to be so aggressive on fourth downs. And maybe they get a good Debo year, maybe not, but if they do, this team, it could be a cakewalk if something disastrous happens to Philly for Washington. So I know you hate Cliff, but
I think Washington could take a big step back too. I mean, look, what's going to happen with McLaurin, number one? Now rumors are swirling there.
Yeah, that's not great. If you got to get him in camp, or
he might get him. I've heard he might end up a Patriot within the last couple hours.
Oh, great.
So and then you like Debo's your one.
No, he can't be. No, he can't be.
No, I mean like your most reliable, like your most reliable target. You're going to rely on Zach Ertz, big huge year. I know they added Tunsil at left tackle, but you could have Daniels. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll have it. Now the league has tape on what they want to do. Like it's not going to be as easy. And by the way, Washington beat one playoff team last year in the regular season. One. It was the Eagles who were blowing their doors off, and then Hurts got hurt, and then Kenny Pickett had to come in, and then Washington came all the way back. That's the only playoff team.
Yeah, give them credit though. They did get better. I mean, they still.
I'm just saying their schedule now gets much more difficult.
Yeah,
and I mean their offense faced the easiest schedule of opposing defenses last year in the league, entire league, dead last. They also faced 9 quarterbacks who were either backups or benched at some point during the year, and they went 8-4 in one-score games with a top 5 healthy roster, while going 20 of 23 on fourth down. It's the best in the history of the NFL. They added 55, their EPA, 55 points, plus 2.4 EPA per fourth down. That's number 1 in the history of the league by far. The fourth down attempt, they averaged 2.5 points every time they went for it on fourth down, went 20 of 23. Let's just say they go 15 to 23 this year. Still really good, 65%. Well, what are you losing? You're losing like 2 touchdowns, maybe 2 wins. That cost you from last year. And now you have a much tougher schedule. I mean, the next highest EPA ever was 44. I think they were 55. And if you look at the best fourth down percentage teams, top 10 since 2000, and these are all like teams like Patriots with Brady, and there's Manning in there. And you go back, there's Saints teams. There's been 10 teams that are at least 74% over the course of a year with at least 10 attempts. The average drop the next year is 20%. So I don't think Washington has figured, and they don't sneak it. They were throwing for fourth downs. There could be some huge regression there. 87% last year, crazy. So schedule gets tougher. There could be some fourth down regression. There could be some health regression. The D had as easy as a schedule as you can ask for, and they were still bad. They couldn't stop the run. They give up way too many explosives. I mean, you add Von Miller. Is that moving the needle for me? Not really. Is Bobby Wagner, is he going to fall off a cliff soon? And then your secondary, Lattimore, I think he's close to washed, especially how you look at his age, it's right at that cliff, his injuries. The rest of your secondary doesn't really inspire much confidence for me. And I still don't love Cliff. He did some really good things last year, really creative things in the screen game, and I got to give him credit there. And Daniels exceeded all of my expectations, but there's some signs pointing down here for Washington. I'm really worried about the defense, really worried about the McLaurin situation, and then just some general regression. But any other thoughts on Washington?
Yes, I think you're letting the Cliff bias get you a little too down on him, because you do agree that the Eagles probably take a step back. you do agree that the Cowboys aren't probably going to be in position to take advantage of any slippage as where they have been in the past. Don't do it because last year is like, you know, you always want to get behind the G-men and then you remember that like it's the G-men. You know what I mean? It's like it seems good in theory, but Washington.
The Giants are back.
Okay, no, but let's look at Washington. I got to push back on some of your points because, like, I think yes, there's a floor scenario where all the guys you mentioned, you know, take a step back or don't hit or fall off a cliff or whatnot. But the counterpoint to that is that Washington's weakest link on offense last year was probably like a offensive line that you always worried was going to like regress back to the mean. They were kind of playing a little bit above their heads, and you know, Jaden Daniels was just so good at bailing them out. Well, adding Laramie Tunsil isn't nothing, right? Like that's still better than it was last year. You also, you know, added some youth.
The offensive line wasn't an issue last year, though.
No, I'm saying it wasn't an issue, but it wasn't. It was kind of like at any point you were saying like, oh man, this offensive line is not great. Like it was true. So Laramie Tunsil is still a nice add. Like it's not like they gave up anything massive for him. And then same thing where it's like, okay, Deebo Samuel could be washed, could be just one of those years where it comes down to his fitness and whatnot. Maybe it's done, but it's still a higher upside number 2 receiver than they had last year, right? And then same thing in the secondary. The secondary was bad last year. Yes, it could. I think
it got worse.
It could, but no. But you can't say it got worse. Lattimore might be washed, but it's still you still have more upside than I think you had last year. I just think the floor is still probably. Like the roster floor, not the teams. Luck and regression and whatnot. And then it's like with the 4th down thing, they just might not need to be in 4th down situations. I mean, Jaden Daniels it wasn't like he was just getting like completely lucky. Like he was playing them into these situations where it was like, okay, well, you just need to get a sample size on this guy because he's either really good or really lucky. But remember, he was hurt at parts of the year. So now you got a better left tackle, a better number 2 receiver. I just think I just don't think
McLaurin, then your receiving room is significantly.
Really, I feel like this is.
They don't want to pay him.
I think
I don't think it's smart to pay him. To be honest.
You got to. You got to take advantage of this. You just talked to me about the rookie. I think it's the Cliff bias, man. I agree that like it's not a slam dunk. This is one of the luckiest, compared to the other.
One of the luckiest teams in NFL history. They went. You got to remember, they were sitting. You want to talk about health? One of the healthiest teams in the league. You want to talk about their schedule? One of the easiest schedules in the league. It's the easiest for any offense. You want to talk about one possession games? They went 8-4. You want to talk about backup quarterbacks faced? And then 4th downs, they were the luckiest team in NFL history on 4th downs. They didn't solve 4th downs. They don't even sneak it. They were 80. It's not repeatable. And by the way, this team was sitting, even with a Hail Mary win. They got a Hail Mary because Stevenson is celebrating with talking shit to the crowd. Even with a Hail Mary win, they beat the Giants because the Giants don't have a kicker. They're sitting at 7-5, even with some lucky wins. And then here's who they beat to close the year out. They beat the Titans, the Saints by 1, the Eagles after Hurts gets hurt, the Falcons in overtime, another rookie quarterback, and then whoever the Cowboys were sending out there by 4, Mariota. And they almost lost that game. Like this team was not. They were very close from just finishing like 7-10. I don't think you know how close they were. Now the schedule gets harder. They might not be as healthy. They might lose McLaurin. They're probably not going to go 20 of 23 on 4th down again. And I think they could take a big step back.
In the last 6 weeks of the season, they beat the Eagles, they beat the Bucks, they beat the Lions, and then it's like I just feel like
the Eagles. It was Kenny Pickett playing that game. They were down by 21.
Yeah, but still not an easy win. I mean, you still had to get back in that game. My point is, there's most of the teams in the NFC that were good are more likely to take a step back. Like somebody's got to win games. Like not everyone can't be bad in the NFC.
I don't think they're going to be bad. I just don't think that they're a double-digit win team. And obviously they could. Like things could break their way again. And then Lattimore could be healthy. McLaurin gets re-signed. The variant, just because you were lucky one year doesn't mean you're lucky to get.
That's kind of what I think. It's like, yeah, I think that Jaden Daniels did show enough to where if they're not lucky, we're not as concerned as we would be like Sam Darnold or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but just because one year doesn't mean you're great the next year again. Like we saw that with Stroud. And now teams know what's coming with this attack. It's not going to be as easy, and the schedule gets a lot harder. But they're definitely in a good position. Their whole organization is in a much more serious spot. And you're probably close to bottom 10 in the league with quarterback spend, with Daniels on a rookie contract. There's a lot of newness on this run. They could have like 9 or 10 new starters too. So we'll see. I just think the defense could be really bad again. So McLaurin situation is definitely where who wins that right tackle spot too? Connerly, Coleman, Wiley. That's something worth watching. Is Amos going to start at cornerback? That maybe, and then Lattimore, keep an eye on his health. I mean, 29-year-old. I don't know. I think he might be on the
counterpoint though. Counterpoint. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game with that terrible defense and a rookie quarterback last year. I mean, it's hard to get too down on them when you have Dallas and the Giants in this division, and then this is a more likely than not to be the down year for Philadelphia. That doesn't mean they're going to be bad, but again, it's just like I'm just trying to figure out who's going to win games. It's like I didn't think Washington got worse. I don't think they got worse.
No, I just don't think that they were that great of a team last year. All right.
Let's talk about the Giants because I feel like
you
must be bullish on them if you're low on all of these other teams.
Yep. I like the Giants defense this year. That's just the worst part about the Giants, their schedule, man.
Yes.
After last year, how do they have this schedule? It's insane. But I think they're better defensively. I love that Abdul Carter pick. Be curious. I mean, it's really going to come down to their secondary on the defensive side of the ball, but I think their defense has potential to be really good. Excuse me, their defense in general has potential to be really good. Like I love this acquisition of Holland. I've always been, since they first drafted him, a huge Newman guy. He showed flashes. I've loved him since college. Adebo, can he get back to form at corner? That's like one of the biggest things for them. And then just the cornerback spot has been it's been a huge sore spot for years. But I think the defense has a lot of potential. The offensive side of the ball, I think it's gonna be better than with Daniel Jones. With Russ, I presume will start. Can the offensive line do anything? Like, that's the question. Maybe, you get Andrew Thomas healthy. That's going to help. Their offensive line wasn't a complete disaster when he was in. It's one of the better tackles in the NFL. Is he going to be healthy? Can he play up to his potential? How does the offensive line come together? Can it be any better? I don't think Russ is a terrible fit for this offensive scheme. And look, this is a team that they were in games last year. As bad as everything was, they were 1-8 in one possession games. But quarterback will be interesting to watch. Offensive line. I think the defense has a lot of potential. The offensive line, like, because Evan Neal, I said this for our first time we did a podcast. Evan Neal should be a guard. Well, can he give them anything at guard? I don't know, but the offensive line and the schedule could ultimately hold them back. But I like this defense. I think they improved at quarterback just because the situation was so disastrous. The offensive line should be better if they're healthy. Just having Thomas back there, I would like for them to go get another veteran. I just would have liked them to add someone to the wide receiver room, someone else. But I don't mind this team. The schedule, though, and the offensive line might end up being their downfall. And then it's like if they fall behind, with how safe is Dable? When do they go to Dart? How soon is he ready? That's some things that I think about. What are your thoughts on the G-Men?
I do agree that they, in terms of value, I think they are in top 2 in this division. I think it's them and Washington. Are best value.
Coming around on my G-Men.
But here's the thing. There's a very specific set of circumstances in which this thing has to work out. And from what I'm hearing, it doesn't necessarily sound like they are going to come to fruition. Now, what I think needs to happen for the Giants to hit their ceiling is they have to stop kidding themselves and comparing
25-1 to win the division.
I mean, I would take that bet. But here's the thing. Here's my problem with the Giants. Here's my biggest problem with the Giants. And you mentioned it, and I think, and you kind of casually mentioned it. I think the worst thing the Giants can do this year to cap their ceiling is go forward with Russell Wilson as a starter and kind of say, we're going to wait on Dart. Because we know what Russell Wilson is. We know that he's not taking you to the promised land. Just because he's better than your last like 8 quarterbacks, and that's not saying much at all. You cannot just kind of get comfortable and say, well, you know what? We just want to return to like bottom 10 instead of bottom 5 at quarterback play. Like Russell Wilson is not it. And this day and age, as you mentioned, any time you can take advantage of a quarterback on a rookie deal, you have to do it. So why not just get Dart the reps early in the season when Andrew Thomas is most likely to be healthy, when Neighbors is the most likely to be healthy? Because if you wait, your schedule doesn't get any easier. All that happens is guys could get more and more injured. It could turn into more of a shit show, and Dart is not going to be able to fully take advantage of the time. So I think that, to me, that's my biggest worry, because I feel like Russell Wilson just gets these chances time after time. I feel like he's a really good team behind him that kind of gets him these assurances, and these coaches always tend to like commit to him. But I mean, we saw Tomlin all of a sudden Wilson came down with a mysterious injury and he didn't start the year. If that happens with Dart, I think Dart just starts. So I don't think you're not benching him. So I think the way to approach the Giants is, take your long shots now and keep watching, because I think that it's a good bet to bet on Dart to start week 1, Dart to lead the team in passing yards. And this team's ceiling, I think, gets exponentially higher if you don't have Russell Wilson in. I mean, what is Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson is going to make you take like more deep shots to Jalen Hyatt. Oh, whoop-de-doo. Like it's going to reinforce all these bad habits. You're not going to have running lanes because you have Tracy a lot better with Daniel Jones. Maybe that wasn't a coincidence. Maybe it was the rushing lanes he created. I think Dart can give you more of that than Wilson at this stage. So, I think Wilson would be just that. That's where I'm out. That's where I'm out. And I don't know if Joe. I don't know if they're like what's going on with Shane and Dable, but if Dable has his way, I think he would realize that too, and it would be Dart. So I'm hoping that's how it unfolds. And then I'll be.
Well, that's what you would want, some more upside. So maybe the Giants to win the division. Like they're not going to win the Super Bowl with Dart, so maybe to win the division. I think that the Eagles and Washington, I don't think that they're bad. I think the Eagles are one of the best rosters in the NFL. I think the Eagles are more like a 10 or 11. Like I think the Eagles with 10 or 11 games, but there's downside risk. Like if the injuries, the health, it really hits them this year. The one possession games with Washington, the Washington health, like they were really healthy last year. I think Washington's like a 8-9 win team, but there's some downside with the 4th downs, with the health, McLaurin, whatever goes on. Like, so I think that these teams are good. I don't think that they're bad. And then the Cowboys could just be a flaming disaster as well. And maybe the Giants are the team that takes advantage and like they get the one possession luck, and then Dart comes in, he's a flash in the pan, and they win 9 games. Things go a little sideways for the Eagles and Washington. Like Daniels gets hurt, Hurts gets hurt for long stretches, and then the Giants luck into a division.
They did win 11. What was it? 10, 11 games a couple years ago with Daniel Jones. So I'm not mad at you for it, but you just got to make sure. I would watch this very closely. The fatal flaw, I think, would be if they're too committed to Russell Wilson. I think that's a bad sign that there's politics at play, because there's no way that this guy warrants potentially risking a great defense, wasting a great defense, just valuable reps to start Russell Wilson. Like come on.
All right, let's get to the NFC West.
All right. NFC West. I mean, it's another one of those divisions where like the team at the top could be either really good or really bad, and it's the 49ers. I think they're a very polarizing team, and they've kind of they've played to that in the past. Is that a feature or a bug? Because you get like I ask myself like the Niners have injury problems. Is it personnel issues now this year? Is it or is it the front office? Because this team has had enough success that you just wonder, did they blow it with some of the moves they've made, filling out the roster and just, some of the whiffs they've had, because they've had some crazy hits too. I mean, Purdy. So what is
I
this?
don't think they blew. They were right last year. They were just decimated by injuries, but yeah, they were a play away from winning the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They were in the NFC Championship game, and then had to play. They had no quarterback left in that game. Or the NFC.
But maybe they should have 3 Super Bowls by now. Like some of the drafts have been. I mean, and then
this year, look, they had to now you had to pay some guys.
Yeah,
injuries are worth watching. Like they were very unlucky last year. Are they going to get luckier this year? We'll see. That's been a consistent problem for the 49ers over the years. But like Ayuk, Mustafa, when are they ready? As a result, wide receiver, safety, those are questions on this team going into the year. We like the hire. They've been searching for an identity on defense ever since Saleh left, and they've kind of just been all over the place. I think Saleh is a great hire. It's as good a hire as they could have had. But the talent on that defense took a big hit in the offseason. So one of the things that I'm watching, besides like the injuries and when some of these guys come back, is the offense stays healthy. You trust Shanahan in that offense as long as they're healthy. Can the young rookies, this is probably more important than almost any team in the NFL for a team that has aspirations of winning its conference, can their young rookies step up on defense? And I'm talking maybe 4 who could be potential starters. Williams at defensive end, maybe even West in the interior of that defensive line. If not starting, what can he give them? Martin at linebacker, potential starter. Stout at nickel, I think is going to be super important that he wins that job, if not right away, eventually. So that's what I'm watching there. It's like the injuries, and then these young guys, they're going to need to fill some of these holes. The 49ers are going to have to hit on that side of the ball in this draft this year, because I do think Saleh raises that floor schematically, but like we've talked about before, still comes down to dudes, and they're going to need some of these rookies to step up.
Yeah, and that's really, I think it goes back to John Lynch again, and Shanahan too, and everybody there, because I just kind of wonder if they're like, are they truly maximizing what they're doing, or are we just not realizing? Are we thinking they're just getting unlucky, but they should have been even better? Because injuries tend to plague them year in, year out, and the depth seems to have been getting worse and worse. And now you're really relying on yourself to hit on dudes this year, like, to your point. And then you at the same time, you've also let go of a lot of dudes and kind of kept churning it. But at some point, like, it's like now you signed your Mr. Irrelevant quarterback to a big contract, and at the same time, it seems like all your receivers are dropping like flies. So, like, you better be right on that, because, like, at what point does Brock Purdy not still average like 8 yards in a time? Like, how many guys have to be hurt before, like, he's just any other guy? Because, like, it got to a point last year at times where it didn't look great for certain stretches. And was that the weather? Is that going to be an issue? Who knows? I mean, I have a lot of questions about what they're doing roster wise, but if they hit on these guys, man, they're right back at it, because I think the 2 best teams in the NFC are likely to take a step back, and that's the Eagles and the Lions, and that works to the Niners' benefit. And even the Rams, I think we'll talk about them next. You wonder if they continue to build on last year, or shit starts to catch up for them. So, I mean, Niners or Rams, are you any leans in terms of those 2 at the top of the division, or which way are you going with that?
I don't mind taking a shot on the Cardinals to win the division, but like, there's some uncertainty with this 49ers defense for sure, the injuries. I don't blame how this team was run. I mean, only one team can win the Super Bowl every year. They were right there for years. They even survived the Trey Lance disaster of a draft pick. But now it's going to be harder after having to pay your quarterback, and you're going to have to pay closer attention to their draft, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The Rams, left tackle now is a question with Alaric Jackson, blood clots. Made him miss 9 games in 2022. What's going to happen there? That's something to watch. Stafford's age, is he? Where is that? Where does he hit that wall? And then you're going to start to see a really steep decline. We don't know. No one knows the answer to that. But is that this year? And I'm still just really worried about the secondary. And I was shocked they didn't bring in anybody. I thought they were going to be in play for like Ramsey but secondary still worries me a bunch. It's McVay. The offense still should be good. Left tackle is definitely worth paying attention to, but it's that defense that worries me. Now they luckily have hit on some of their young. Just look at their draft class. The young defensive players that have hit, and that's kept them afloat. But the secondary is what I'm worried about there. The Cardinals, I think, are interesting because I think they're building it right. I do love their staff. I'm curious to see if their defensive line should be significantly improved. I'm curious to see if Cody Simon wins the linebacker spot next to Wilson. I'm curious to see if Will Johnson, if he's healthy and he can win one of those outside corner spots. Guy's a ton of potential, dealt with some injuries. I think ideally you'd have him and Melton on the outside at corner. But that defense is trending up for sure. We know the offense is going to be pretty good. They bring back their entire offensive line. It's going to come down to Murray. Can he ever complete a deep pass for once? And I don't know. That's just a constant weakness. Marvin Harrison Jr. It's got to be that guy this year. Apparently he's locked in, put in a lot of work. I'm looking for him to take a big leap. They need him to be that guy on the outside, that alpha on a week in and week out basis. But I think this team has a lot of upside for sure. So I don't mind taking a shot on the Cardinals to win the division. The 49ers and Rams, they should be good teams, but there are questions. And I think the Seahawks are going to take a big step back.
Yes.
I trust McDonald in the defense, but I only think it can take them so far. You're going to have a new scheme on offense, new run blocking scheme, but it's going to be Sam Darnold behind a very shaky interior offensive line. When you look at their interior offensive line, you could argue the most settled position is a rookie left guard out of the FCS ranks. That's the one that you feel most confident about. A left guard rookie. As your center and right guard, you got competitions there. We don't know who's going to win it. It's going to be, and you have Sam Darnold with a shaky interior offensive line. I don't know. I think the Seahawks take a big step back. Trust their defense. The defense is only going to take you so far. So I think the Seahawks take a big step back. Cardinals could be beneficiaries of some of those questions on the 49ers roster with their defense and injuries. And then the Rams with, potentially a left tackle question, Stafford getting older, and then a secondary that's still pretty shaky. Maybe the Cardinals are the team that benefits from that. But if they're healthy, Rams and 49ers still should be very good, and they're very well-coached teams. But I expect the Seahawks to take a step back. Cardinals could be the beneficiaries there.
I think one of the things we didn't mention was with the Rams, they tend to have this somewhat of a track record of being a little long in the tooth waiting with these wide receivers. I think they probably could have got trade value for Kupp had they got off of him a year earlier. And then remember the Allen Robinson debacle, Sammy Watkins. So Devontae Adams, is he truly going to be what they think he's going to be? Because he did show some interesting signs of you didn't see it a ton in his numbers by the end of the year because Aaron Rodgers was just force feeding him the ball, but he started to drop off in his effectiveness against zone coverage. I think Matt Harmon had him down at 30th percentile, and that was one of the warning signs. That tends to be the warning signs with the perimeter bigger body guys. So that's something I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah, is he not as explosive anymore?
Right. Because Stafford, to your point, I don't know how he did it last year, but I thought he was like navigating the pocket and pressure very well. But at the same time, you see kind of the warning signs where we know he's older. We know you can't get him. You don't want to get him hit a ton at this stage. But also, like the touchdowns weren't there. The red zone has been a struggle at times.
There's cracks in Stafford's foundation. Now, no water has come through yet. Like all the water's still outside the house, but it's not too much longer until you're needing to pump water out of your basement.
Yeah, the Rams get into these odd situations where like every once in a while it just too much goes wrong and McVay can't really fix it, and that's kind of their floor this year. But then again, it's also dependent on the Niners, because when the Niners have a bad season, it's usually not like, oh, they're still good. The Niners usually go like 6-11, and that leaves that division wide open. So, and then the Cardinals their offense is good, but don't you think they could have added some more at receiver too? I mean, why stop at
no Greg Dortch slander on this podcast?
No, but I don't think he's being utilized right in a committee at the. What is he playing? The Z with Zay Jones? Like what are we doing?
I think there's a chance that they could sign someone.
Yeah, they need to, but no, don't sign like a washed vet either, because that's just Zay Jones again. Like I would have liked to see them kind of more aggressively try to shore up that receiving core, because you could say they have a lot of upside, but then the counterpoint is if McBride or Harrison, who I think both played 17 games last year. One of those guys goes down, it could get bad really quickly too. So a lot of questions about the West. It's very wide range of outcomes, and then we're gonna talk about the North now, right? Everyone's gonna be good there, huh?
Yeah, that's one of the North. Probably the most interesting division in the NFL. For my money, I've heard like very passionate arguments about every team, like who's going to win this division. We'll start with a team that I'm higher on the market for the first time in my life, and that's the Bears. I could look dumb. It's usually how it works with Chicago when you're high on them. Luckily, I haven't ever been high on them, but this year I am. What am I watching in camp? Well, I'm not a believer in Steve. I think that Stevenson actually, his traits could fit in Dennis Allen's defense, but I'm just not a believer in him as the player. But we'll see. It's going to be a scheme change on defense. You got everyone back in the secondary, but that quarterback 2 battle, I mean, Smith, does he win it over Stevenson? I don't know. We'll see. They need to find a way to just get more consistent pass rush. But I think the defense will be decent. It's not going to carry them to a division title. This is all about the offense, which I don't think would be a shock to anyone. And this is all going to come down to, there's a left tackle maybe question, like is Jones ready and is he healthy? If not, like is the rookie does it get a shot? Trapillo from BC? I don't know. But this is one of the most improved offensive lines in the NFL, just the interior guys that they brought in. You have the weapons. You even have Burden and Loveland now, and you have the weapons on the outside. You have Ben Johnson, one of, if not the best offensive minds in the NFL. It's all about Caleb Williams now. This is all that's worth watching. There's no more excuses. And he was bad last year, even with a clean pocket. I know nothing went right. The play calling was bad. The offensive line was bad. But his accuracy with a clean pocket wasn't great. So everything that I'm watching, I expect the offense to be so much more professional, so much more balanced. Like they were so predictable last year. And it's just going to be a much more professionally run, more advanced offense. Can Caleb Williams make the throws? Can he handle this offense? Does he understand how it works? And we're going to find out early in the season, but that's what I'm watching. Number one, he's going to have to be under center more. How's he handle that? How's his footwork? His deep ball accuracy needs to be better. That's something I'm going to be watching closely in camp, preseason, whenever I can. This all comes down to Caleb Williams taking the next step. All the pieces are around him. The defense is good enough to win this division. Does Williams handle this offense, and can they take it to the next level?
Yeah, he's got to calm down, and and lock in because we know he has a talent, but he's just so. Maybe it was a product of the coaching staff, but I agree. I think everything else is in place, but you still can't do it without the quarterback, especially in this division, because you're just gonna get eaten alive.
And their
And then
schedule's one of the hardest in the NFL because of this division.
yeah, so and Williams, I mean, say what you want about Adunze and Keenan Allen and whatnot, but at the end of the day, there's just a lot of off target throws that just look very like head scratchingly off target. To where was it just like a same page issue? Was it an accuracy issue? Is it like a mental concentration issue with Williams? Like sometimes it just seems like he's like thinking like 10 things at once while he's dropping back in the pocket. It's like I just don't know. I don't know that this is this might take more than 1 year to truly get him to where he needs to be. So it could be a rougher transition than something, but at the same time, you like that there are contingencies this year. You like that, okay, if we have a question about the tackle, well, we probably still going to have the best interior line, one of the best interior lines in the game now because we went out and signed guys. You like that they also have options at tackle
because they couldn't run it up the middle. They couldn't do anything. So that would be a much more balanced offense this year for sure.
Ironically, that's the one thing they didn't add as much to as maybe some people thought they might was the run game. I know they got Monogany and maybe he factors in, but that would help a lot too because if they can be like a Lions team where they don't really have to pass.
Yeah, the Lions were one of the most run-heavy early down teams in the NFL last year.
Yeah, that's a big. I think that would help Caleb Williams a lot. So, but he just got to relax and hope. And I think the fact that Ben Johnson wanted to go there feels like he can work with this is also. I think you have to take that as a positive.
Yep. Let's move on to the Packers, who I think there's some fascinating questions here. So as we approach camp, I'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Like, number one, what's going on with Elgton Jenkins? His status. It seems like he's saying, hey, I want to get paid. They paid Banks, and he's saying, I want to get paid. I don't think he's going to show up and participate unless they pay him. What's going to happen there? Packers, they generally don't pay guys that do this unless you're a QB, but we'll see. If Jenkins doesn't, then you got a problem. Because I losing their center, who I thought was Myers, I didn't think he was any good. I thought Jenkins, who played there in college, he's played there in NFL before, I thought he could take over seamlessly, and it would actually improve their offensive line. If he's not there, then I don't know. Does Ryan move to center, and you need Morgan at guard? But if Jenkins is there, does Morgan still win a spot at the guard position over Ryan? Banks is going to be in there for what they paid him. So the offensive line now with the Jenkins question is certainly worth watching. In addition to that, how does the wide receiver room shake out? Love, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but you just look at last year, his completion percentage on late downs. If you remove wide receiver error, top 3. With wide receiver error, dead last. His wide receivers were so inconsistent last year. You have the Watson injury. You have Dubs back. Reed. You had Golden to the mix. You have drafted Williams. You brought in Hardman, Wicks, Melton. How does this all shake out? What is the hierarchy? And then I think they should be running more two tight end sets. But then you have all these receivers. How does that room shake out? You got a million guys. They're all inconsistent. So watching how that comes together, they need to limit the drops. They need to limit the mistakes. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's all about the cornerback room. They lost Alexander, who's always been hurt. Stokes is gone. Who cares? He was terrible. You bring in Hobbs, but you got a bunch of guys who are it will give you flexibility. And Halfley did a tremendous job last year, more zone heavy than I thought he was going to be. Lots of simulated pressures. They were one of the best teams in the NFL getting pressure when they blitzed because they couldn't really get pressure naturally. And they got a lot of turnovers. Can't rely on that again. When are they going to get – so how does the corner room shake out, number one? I assume Bullard, when they're in big nickels, going to be in the slot. But then you're going to have, I assume Nixon, who I think is pretty underrated on the outside. Hobbs on the outside, maybe. But then if you have Valentine, you might kick Hobbs inside when you're in dime. So we'll see. They're very versatile. I want to see how all that shakes out. But it's time for their. You want to talk about a team? They've been the youngest team in the league the last 2 years. They made the playoffs both years. Last year, Hafley did a tremendous job. They got a ton of turnovers. Not going to rely on that again. Lost Alexander. Can they get a pass rush naturally? Why is this? How can this team get to the next level? They're all about developing. They've found some diamonds in the rough. You know what's held them back? Their top draft picks. Their first-round draft picks since 2021. Eric Stokes, bust. 2022. Quay Walker and Wyatt. Can we see something from you this year? Both of them. Get to the quarterback. Generate consistent pressure. Saw flashes from Walker. Then what he had? 1 sack the last 10 years. Van Ness. Top 15 pick. Where are you? Show it. And then Morgan last year. Are you going to get a starting? Like their first-round draft picks over the last 4 seasons. Then you have Golden this year. Have done nothing for them. I should say nothing. They just have not lived up to expectation. They're not contributing. And this is a team that wants to develop. They're not going to go out bring in a ton of guys in free agency. So it's time for them to step up. So a lot of things I'm watching with the Packers. I think they have extreme upside, but they also have a low floor because this defense could go sideways. The offense, just how's it all going to come together? You have this Elton Jenkins question. How's the receiver room going to come together? I trust the staff. I really like the staff, but a lot of questions. Sorry for my Packers ramble. What do you say?
I think this is a year that you want to buy the Packers because they didn't really take a true step back. Like they did, but they didn't, if that makes sense. Like they clearly had issues against top teams, and that's going to be your undoing, obviously, in the postseason. But I think they're in position where they're getting slept on, first of all. So there's value in the market. The division's really good. But at the same time, I think the key for me is their quarterback is excellent. To your point, like Jordan Love, I don't think people realize that he had a top 5 season in terms of yards per attempt, QBR. Like I think
all his early down data, which is more predictive, is really good.
Yeah. You know what happened to Jordan Love? He got hurt and had to miss some time, and that obviously is going to have an effect. And what's becoming more and more clear every day is that the Packers did not like the way their receiver room set up last year. Yeah. And so, we kind of knock a lot of these teams for being poor at their evaluations and, waiting too long. I like that the Packers are kind of getting that because I even, was like, oh, yeah, having Wicks, wide receiver 4, gotta love that. Like, I was looking at them like they had an embarrassment of riches. Like, oh, yeah, Bo Melton, he's like your number 5. They moved this guy to corner. Jaden Reed.
Another guy I should have mentioned in the corner room. Bo Melton maybe in the mix.
Right. But I mean, I feel like it's all upside with the Packers because Jordan Love was good even when he was bad. And by the way, you could talk about the offensive line. Like Jordan Love got sacked like once a game. Yes, they decreased his passing attempts, but I mean, he's still dropping back 30 times a game. Like his sack numbers were still impressive with being injured. Now I think Golden gives them a dimension that they didn't consistently have before. That allows them more options, with, Dobbs should not be playing as much as he does either, or if he should not be in the role he is. What I wonder is Reed. Like, I think they could stand to increase his role more. I don't know why they baby him with the taking him off the field in all the 2 wide receiver sets, because I mean, he's supposed to be like their leading receiver. He averaged like 4.5 targets last year. I think the Golden acquisition could help the entire pass offense because they'll be more willing to throw that, and they'll also be, I think that puts Jaden Reed on the field more, even if he's still sitting out those heavier personnel because they're just passing more. Last year they barely passed the ball, but they just have they find ways to get a lot of upside from guys. Like, I mean, that was Jacobs. McKinney comes over and beast. Jordan Love's been a monster, and he had that crazy stretch to end the year before, and they had that playoff game. I mean, they damn near made it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I think the Packers have a ton of upside, and this division.
They're not only Super Bowl threats right now.
Maybe this division being so good is actually a good thing for value because it kind of makes everyone, or it kind of makes people kind of scared of the Packers, but I think their downside year was somehow a year where they still were very good last year. So yeah, I'm in on the Packers. I'm right with you. I think it's Packers and Bears, and then Lions and Vikings if you got to fade people. And did we even talk about them yet? I mean,
No,
Lions we're down
Vikings
on,
I'll
right?
mention quickly. Obviously,
Okay.
McCarthy's going to be worth watching. You basically have a rookie quarterback. So new interior offensive line could be better. You have good tackles. You have good weapons on the outside. I think personally with the Vikings, something worth watching. I mean, look, last year they went 9-1 in one possession games, 5-1 in field goal games. They had 33 takeaways, 24 interceptions. Both led the league, and even though they were bottom 5 in separation metrics for their secondary, which is still a major question. Schedule gets tougher as well. Basically, you get the Chargers and Seahawks instead of the Giants and Jets, and then the AFC North instead of the AFC South. So things are going to be a little tougher for the Vikings. I think they want to run more this year. Yep. Makes sense with McCarthy. And then you bring in Mason. You think you go out and you upgrade your. I still have some questions. Like everyone thinks that Freeze is just he's going to be an All-Pro guard. I still think there's some questions there. But you go out, you spend on the interior offensive line. You know you have good tackles. You know you have good receivers. If you can establish, and they haven't been able to really run the ball the last couple of years. If you can run the ball more effectively, and then you have those receivers on the outside, it's going to help your young quarterback, and it's going to open up things. It's going to make him very difficult to defend, and that's why I think one of the reasons they brought in Jordan Mason. The defensive side of the ball have a lot of questions. You know, it's Brian Flores. I think they're going to blitz less. So I think they're going to run more, blitz less. Kind of marries somewhat philosophically because I think they want to rely more on coverage. Like 2 years ago, Flores blitzed 50% of the time. Last year was like 40. I could see it being like 33, 34. He's still going to blitz a lot, but I could see that dropping. And the reason is you went out and you got guys who can get pressure from the interior, or so you think. And, you bring in Allen and you bring in Hargrave. And last year you weren't really getting any Phillips. He's not getting any pressure from the interior. So I think you can get a little more natural pressure. And then your secondary is a big, major question for me. That's what I need to watch here. I mean, does Theo Jackson step up and give you anything? Because like Metellus and Harrison Smith he's past his prime. If they're your deep safeties, yikes. And then your cornerback room, it's like Murphy. Can he have the year he did last year? I have questions about that. Okuda, Blackman, you're probably going to need. Rogers, these guys are not reliable at the corner. So you're probably going to have to play more coverage, I think. You lost Bynum as well in that secondary. So I have a lot of questions about this defense progressing hard. And then the offense, I think they want to run the ball more. We'll see how successful they can be doing that. That'll help McCarthy a lot. And then how effective is he as basically a rookie? That's probably going to go a long way. It's a really good staff, but I think the Vikings take a clear step back, which the market obviously is accounting for. But I'm pretty low on the Vikings this year. I think they take a big step back.
I actually have a bit of a different take with the Vikings. I think that they may be a better team than last year. I just think they won't win as many games because last year they lost.
No, they went 9-1 in one possession games.
They lost to two teams last year, Detroit and the Rams, twice each. That's the only two teams they lost to. So, but the thing about that is when you talk about the improvement from Chicago, you talk about the improvement from Green Bay, now you take those sweeps out of the equation and you've added just a harder schedule across the board.
Yeah, AFC North instead of AFC South, Chargers and Seahawks instead of Giants and Jets.
Yeah. And remember, ultimately, I think you got to remember, this is the quarterback that O'Connell wants. He's made it work with pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
But this is clearly the quarterback he wants. So long term, I think the Vikings are a buy, and I think they're going to be good enough on offense that they'll be able to mitigate some of the worst of it. They'll win some shootouts too, but it's just more about their schedule for me. And it's kind of a similar story to Detroit, but Detroit I think actually does have some more legit concerns because the Vikings have always been this kind of team. They're going to have some weird games on defense, but they're going to be
the
able
Vikings
to
this year will go 1-8 one possession games. They're like the extremes. That's probably what will happen this year. They seem like they're really lucky or really unlucky in that department. But McCarthy, I'm really want to watch to see this we won't know till the regular season, but their run rates, their blitz rates, secondary comes together, and that interior offensive line, which will play into the run game, which I think will help McCarthy because you got to expect there's going to be some learning curve early. But Detroit, yeah, I think they take a step back. I get their defense was really banged up last year. I'm still not in love with the personnel. And by the way, their offense was extremely healthy. So if you get injuries on that side of the ball, then that's the more important side of the ball as well. They were lucky with fumbles, injuries, you name it across the board. But the main thing with the Lions, we already talked about how much we love Ben Johnson. Who doesn't? The loss of Ben Johnson. How does that impact Jared Goff? He doesn't no longer get his hand held by McVay or Johnson. And now your interior offensive line is a major question mark. You lost your two best interior offensive linemen. Frank Ragnow was the best center in the NFL. The best run blocking, arguably the best run blocking interior offensive lineman in the entire NFL. And the run game was such a huge portion. And then Goff can't deal with it. He can't move. He can't deal with interior pressure. I mean, Goff, when kept clean in that offense, is elite. Second in accuracy. When not, bottom 10 in accuracy. Now, that offensive line with Mahogany, you're going to have Tate Ratledge, the rookie from Georgia, maybe starting at center. That's as big of a drop-off at one of the most important positions as you will see. So interior offensive line and the loss of Ben Johnson, major question marks. The defensive injury recoveries, that's worth watching, the Anzalone contract situation. But, I mean, this team was, plus 10 in turnovers, 7-2 in one-score games, 4-0 in field goal games. They were really healthy on offense. They should be healthier on defense. I didn't love their draft. So I think that they take a step back this year. And by the way, their schedule gets tougher. And part of that is they have the toughest road slate in the league. A lot of those games, outdoors against really good teams. 7 of 9 outdoors. You're going to get a little win for Goff with some interior pressure. No Ben Johnson around. Might not look as pretty in Detroit.
Yeah, and it's funny though, because, if let's say Washington isn't as bad as you think they're going to be, I mean,
I don't think they're going to be bad. I just said that I think they're going to win 9 games. That's good.
My point is though,
under 9.5 plus money, and I think there's some downside there with health, close games, 4th downs, McLaurin. So good.
The Lions.
Do you have a Washington Super Bowl future, by the way?
No. I have.
Sounds like you need to get one.
I have a division future for them. I think just based on, the Eagles' trajectory one year to the next and whatnot. But Detroit, I also don't think they're necessarily going to be like the classic, take a step back team. I think Campbell is probably getting a little swept on. Like everyone's gonna Ben Johnson, but at the same time, there's just more so than any other year with Detroit since in recent memory since they got good. Just everything's working against them now. Like you lose not only Johnson, but you lose like Engstrand as well. So like now there's new cooks in the kitchen, and you mentioned like there's some head scratchers in the draft. It was kind of disconcerting that you got like the way that playoff game unfolded, and you also lost to the Bucks. You lost to the Bucks. You lost to the Commanders to end the season, and then what was the third loss? Somebody else good, right? Like so that's worry now, because now you're gonna need to, the Bills. So like they only lost to teams that there's no shame in it, but it's like. That last year might have been the year for the Lions. Like they were so good until they weren't, and their defense just came apart. Now nothing's going to be as easy. They could finish last in this division, and they could be better than.
I think there's some value in missing the playoffs, but yeah,
but they might be better than a first place team in another division. Was going to be my point about like if some of these teams really do, kind of have a floor outcome. So I just think this NFC it's going to be really tough. Futures wise, because it's like they all could just be so good, but they're not all going to win games. And then it's like, remember people wanted to fade Minnesota, I think was it last year, right? And then they ended up being elite until they weren't, and it's just it's gonna be tough. But I think Green Bay, I think Chicago and Green Bay are the right teams, and then Minnesota could surprise people, because I mean having questions on defense, but still having Flores there and still having an offense that makes it work with like any quarterback almost. still a solid position to be in. So
It's
I
a
just think
fascinating
this
division.
division
You can make arguments for all the teams.
Yeah, no, the way it could play out is they could just didn't they do this last year too, where they had a really good record against the rest of the NFL. I mean, it could just be. I wouldn't be scared to be very bearish on like multiple teams in other divisions. Just kind of
like the NFC East.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, the West could be bad too, though. You know what I mean? Like it could be good or it could be bad. That's why I just want upside with them. And I'm still not buying Arizona as a Super Bowl team. And even if
no, Arizona's not a Super Bowl team
yet. Yeah. So that makes it simpler because like only McVay, the Eagles, and Shanahan from the NFC go to the Super Bowl. It seems like so.
It's Green Bay's time.
I'm with you. I think they're the team, and fantasy as well. I mean, for a quarterback that was as efficient as he was, and his main issue is just volume and injury, you can get him and all his receivers essentially for free because none of them are being drafted as like true fantasy starters. Like they're the team that's being slept on, and that I think that's how you kind of take advantage of the fact that this division's so good. Like the Bears are gonna be the chalk, and it's probably gonna be.
I don't think the Bears are ready yet, like for a Super Bowl though.
Yeah, Caleb. It could be an issue. There's those warning signs there if we're being honest with ourselves. So yeah, Green Bay. I'm excited about Green
Bay.
All right. So yeah, of course, right. So we like Green Bay. That is we like Green Bay, and we are hoping that the Giants don't hold themselves back with Russell Wilson, and then we're good. And hopefully you're wrong about Cliff. But that's going to do it for our Marathon Action Network podcast breaking down NFC training camp questions. Be sure to follow Stuck on X at Stuckey2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We'll be in Chicago August 23rd. Save the date. More details to come. Keep it locked. Let's get this money.
Let go.